Welcome back, everyone, to the Uncommon Freedom Show. Today, we have a special guest, Curtis Carnes, a husband, father, executive coach, and author of Breakthroughs Are Everywhere. Curtis has been coaching leaders for over a decade and is passionate about helping others achieve trajectory-shifting breakthroughs. Curtis, thanks so much for joining us today. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about it. My name is Curtis Carnes. Again, I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. I'm an executive coach in the area. I got coach various companies, usually director level VPs, C-suite. I've also had this idea called breakthrough groups, which I'm in the process of launching out. Really, my dream is to help people experience breakthroughs every day. And I know it's a huge statement, the title of the book, that breakthroughs are everywhere. And I just want to get that reality out into the world and not only tell people that it's true, but actually show people how. And that's really what I'm committing my life to, is to do that.
That's awesome. Breakthrough was my year for 2023. So I appreciate the concept and certainly value someone who's able to help people experience breakthroughs in their life. So let's talk about personal and professional breakthroughs. Curtis, you talk a lot about the potential for daily personal and professional breakthroughs. Can you share what inspired you to write Breakthroughs Are Everywhere and how these concepts have impacted your own life?
Absolutely. I mean, it's true, you're going to hear throughout this podcast, I'm an evangelist for the breakthrough life, but I'm also a convert. Like this has been a journey for me. Like you see the breakthrough circle in my book. I've been doing iterations of that in my own life for 13 years. And so that's why I communicate to people that they're everywhere, that you could experience them, because I have, and I've seen other people experience them as well. And really, like, even just recent ones, like writing this book was a breakthrough, right? I was leading a breakthrough group where I was also functioning as a participant. And for me, my big breakthrough was the courage to write this book. Like, one of my intake questions, both for one-on-one coaching and breakthrough groups, is, if you were full of courage, what would you do right now? And guess what, Kevin? I never have answered my own intake questions until that group last year. And my answer was, write this book. And I wrote it. So that's just a small example, big example for me of just me applying just that. I'm going to make a discovery, take an action, make a discovery, take an action.
You know what I love about that question is a lot of times we use the question, if you knew you couldn't fail, what would you do? But that's actually more of a kind of a negative approach to, if you were full of courage, like that's the positive type of approach to it. So if you were full of courage, what would you do, versus if you couldn't fail, or if you didn't have fear, what would you do? So I really like that approach.
I appreciate that. I think that all great coaching is future focused. We're not looking back at the past. We're not looking back at our fears, but we're looking forward to the future and stepping into courage.
Yeah, that's great. So let's talk about the breakthrough equation. One of the key concepts in your book is the breakthrough equation. Can you explain what this is and how our listeners can apply it to their everyday lives to foster continuous growth?
Absolutely. Like, I think the biggest barrier we got to get over is that we think breakthroughs are rare. Like, they rarely happen to us, and if we're lucky. And what I want to argue is, just over the course of just the last 15 years, I've just distilled it into a very simple equation. And I'm not saying it's easy, but it is simple. It's discovery times action equals breakthrough. And the greater the discovery, the greater the action, the greater the breakthrough. Perfect example, like, I'll go to my own life. Like, I made a discovery that my coping mechanism for my anxiety is food. So I had that discovery. It was a family of origin thing. It was something that I've always wanted to tackle. And I made a discovery. Okay, that's my eating issue problem. It's that's where it's derived from. So I made that discovery, and I was able to, as a result, I invited other people into the journey with me, and then I made a courageous action. I'm going to change the way I eat. And it wasn't tied to losing weight. It wasn't tied to even looking good. It was tied to I no longer want to use food as a coping mechanism for my anxiety. And huge breakthrough for me, right? Like right now, I'm a testament to that breakthrough. Is I no longer turn to food for my coping mechanism.
That's
And
awesome. Um, Take me through that process one more time. What's the
yeah,
equation?
yeah, the equation is discovery times action equals breakthrough. And I have this tool called the breakthrough circle that just unpacks how we do that equation in our daily life.
Okay, and that's the next question, is to talk about the breakthrough circle. So that's another one of the intriguing concepts from your book. Can you describe what the circle entails and how it helps individuals and leaders navigate through personal and professional challenges?
Definitely, because it's really about it starts with an inflection point, and inflection point's at the top of the circle. And then I define that simply as this is a moment in time where change may occur. And the keyword's may,
Yeah.
Kevin, like may occur. And what I'm arguing is that inflection points are happening all around us. I've probably experienced 10 inflection points today. We probably already have had 2 inflection points in our conversation today. But the question is, are we seeing them? And that's what step 1 of discovery is that you have to observe them. That's step 1 in discovery. I know it sounds so simple, but the number one reason we're not making discoveries in our life is we're not looking for them. So we got to open that space up in our life when you start looking for the inflection points and discoveries that are all around us. And it's cool when people start doing that, they're everywhere. Like it's kind of like seeing my son and I really want to have a Jeep, right? We started talking about that recently. And now every time we see a Jeep, one of us yells, Jeep, right? And we didn't really see Jeeps a lot until recently. And now since we're talking about Jeeps, we're seeing Jeeps everywhere on the road. And it's no different with inflection points or discoveries. Like we need to start opening our lives up to observe them regularly. And happy to talk more about what that could look like soon. But the step 2 is reflect. I don't know about you, but I've done this all the time is I observe a discovery and then I don't reflect on it. Right? Or someone or a client observes a discovery and then just moves on through their day and just leaves it and doesn't come back to that. So that's step 2 is just reflect. Like what was important about that inflection point? Like what would happen, if you took that to its full conclusion when it comes like writing this book was I was reflecting on what's holding me back, right? And upon further reflection, the thing that was holding me back from writing was I didn't believe I was a writer, right? And then so often when we reflect, we realize that it's actually internal narratives that we're telling ourselves is keeping us from moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what is for me. So I reflected on that. Okay, how can I move past that? And the next step 3 in the discovery process is discuss. And I hate to say this, only in the last 15 years have I started inviting other people into my interior world. And there's something that happens when we just start inviting people in. For number 1, if you say it out loud, it just starts to become a reality. Just saying it out loud, right? Like, for example, I want to write this book. I started telling people, and it created a social peer pressure for me to write it. I had another client that said, man, deep down inside, he wanted to be a 2-day CEO. He was the owner of his company, and he just wanted to invest 2 days of his week to it. But he never said it out loud, right? He's saying to me in a coaching relationship, and this is what I want. And he's like, I've never told this to anyone. So it's interesting that how much we keep inside. And so me and I've seen other people start saying what they want out loud, start talking about their discoveries out loud, and it's big. It opens up the door, and just saying it out loud invites other people to join you, to introduce you to relationships, resources, or opportunities that you wouldn't even know are available to you unless you said it out loud. So that's the discovery process, right? You
Yeah.
observe, you reflect, you discuss.
Yeah, I really, I totally understand and agree with the discussion portion. I mean, I agree with all three, but I think the discussion portion is probably one of the, I guess they're all important because you don't have one without the other, but we've seen it in what my wife and I do. We specialize in helping people lose weight, get off the medications, and really get into the best shape of their life with a lifestyle program. But the vast majority of people that come to us, their initial, reason is weight loss. And one of the things, we tell them is, it's difficult for some people, especially, but we say you got to live your health journey out loud. You have to tell people, hey, I'm making some changes in what I'm eating. I'm making some changes in my lifestyle. It's not necessarily fun, and for some people, there's a lot of shame involved with it.
Yes.
But what that does is it's kind of like this manifestation type of process, as well as it, like you said, it invites other people into the journey. Because if I'm, if I'm an alcoholic and I say, hey, I realize I'm an alcoholic and I'm going dry, what that does is that invites your friends in your circle into supporting you on that journey. Instead of offering you a beer when you're at a party, they're actually going to be looking out for you and saying, "Hey, Kevin, can I give you a here's a Coke instead, or here's a club soda instead." And so I see the value of what you're talking about right there. So, all right, let's talk about the 5 breakthrough shifts. You outlined 5 breakthrough shifts. Can you briefly walk us through these shifts and explain how they can lead to significant changes in one's life and work?
Yeah, I do. Would you like me to unpack the back half of the circle first,
Oh
or
yeah, yeah. I didn't realize we hadn't got through that. So let's go ahead and do that first, Curtis.
yeah, no problem. You got two sides of that circle: discovery, which is observe, reflect, discuss, and then action. And I don't know about you, I have a cathartic experience with making discoveries about my life. It makes me feel good about myself. It makes me feel good when I'm communicating it to other people. But as my wife always tells me, discovery times zero equals no breakthrough. And I think often people think that the discovery is the breakthrough. It's not. Like discovery is where it opens the door to breakthrough. So the back half of the circle is action. The first step is plan. And three of my favorite questions for planning is just what's the first step? Like, what's the first step to start moving that to reality? Perfect example, writing this book. What was the first step? It was starting to tell people, for me. Like another question that I love is what's your greatest possible imagined future? Like usually we're worst case scenario people. Like let's start casting new imagined futures that we want to live into. And then the question I've already shared before is if you're full of courage, what would you do? I think that question helps us guide us to the right action steps to take. So plan that step based on the discovery. The step 5 is account. And this is where we've done accountability wrong. It's like often in organizations, like I'm going to tell you what you're accountable for. That's wrong. Like the secret sauce to accountability is that when the person has the discovery, created the plan, that they set the accountability metric. It's everything. So as your health coach, I'm a coach, and to any coach that's listening, I'll give you on a silver platter, the best question to ask. It's this: what question do you want me to ask you the next time we connect?
Wow, that's good.
What that does is that they create the accountability question. It makes it easy for me to follow up. You asked me to ask you that question,
Yeah.
right? And so literally, I usually end a lot of my breakthrough groups or my one-on-one questions with that question. And then next call, guess what question I'm asking? The very question they asked me to ask them. So I would encourage anyone to take that little nugget with you into any coaching relationship. And then the last step is act. That's step 6. That's the fun part. Like once you act, is the breakthrough occurs, right? I no longer go to food as an anxiety mechanism. The book is out. The guy's a 2-day CEO now, right? That's the fun part because that's where the breakthrough occurs. So what I want to do, what I'm trying to help people realize is that you just keep following that cycle. That's the playbook for making breakthroughs a regular part of your life.
That's good. And I love asking them, what's the one question you want me to ask? Because a lot of times, as coaches, accountability partners, we've got our own concepts of, all right, this is a question I'm going to ask Kevin the next time I talk to him that'll hold him accountable.
Yes.
But that doesn't necessarily create buy-in for Kevin if he's the one I'm trying to hold accountability. But by getting that, if someone's being truly honest with what they need, they're going to give you the perfect question because when I'm coming from my perspective. And so, if I'm coaching you, Curtis, I'm thinking, well, if I was Curtis, this is a question I would want to ask. But the reality is you and I are different people. So that's a brilliant pivot to say, what question do you want me to ask? I'll be implementing this in my coaching today, because today is a busy work day for me where I check in with a lot of my clients. So I love that question. So are we ready to move on to the breakthrough shifts? All right.
Yeah. Happy to
Okay.
move.
So there's 5 breakthrough shifts that you talk about in your book. Can you briefly walk us through these shifts and explain how they can lead to significant changes in one's life and work?
Yes, happy to. I mean, I'm going to share a presupposition of my coaching and my writing is that external change, external outcomes almost always come from an internal shift. And if you're only purely changing external behaviors, you're only going to get incremental results. It's internal shifts that actually get you to trajectory shifting breakthroughs in your life. And the first shift is called information discovery. Like there's an information myth in our world. If you had more information, you would know what to do and you would do it, right? Since you're in the health space, guess what? I know it's really good for me to eat well for a host of reasons. I've heard that information all the time.
Right.
But does that change my life? No. And then when I want to shift people away from the information myth to discovery, it's all about discovery. What discoveries am I making about my professional life, my personal life, my health? And once you make discovery the central point, not information, it changes everything. And the reason why I know this, Kevin, is that I'm a recovering information addict.
Hmm.
I like consuming information. It makes me feel smart. It
Yes.
makes me feel like I'm doing something, but I am not. All I'm doing is accumulating information, and that doesn't get me much places, but making discoveries does. And that's why I'm trying to push people towards. We just live in a culture where that knowing information is overvalued and making discovery is undervalued. And I want to flip that.
Yeah, I mean, we're really information gluttons for the most part in
Yes,
today's society.
absolutely.
I mean, with everything, virtually every possible fact at our fingertips, with our phones, it's easy to have, all the information we need. Like the reality is, we probably all know what we need to do to get healthy, to become wealthy, to have a good marriage, to be a good parent. The question is, it's not a lack of information, it's the application and the
Absolutely.
internalization of it. So
Absolutely.
that's great. That's great. Let's talk about normalizing breakthroughs. I love this concept. So you emphasize the importance of normalizing breakthroughs in everyday life. How can people start to see breakthroughs as a regular part of their journey rather than rare, extraordinary events? Because I think most people probably think breakthroughs are rare, extraordinary events, but how do we shift to thinking or to realizing that these are things that actually happen every single day?
Yep. This is my biggest ask of Kevin. or the listener. You have to believe it first. And it's in the introduction of my book. It's the only time I make a popular reference. I wish I could make more Seinfeld references, but people are past Seinfeld now.
I know it's so sad. I
It's
get
sad. I,
it.
it's so sad. And and George Costanza says this, it's not a lie if you believe it. And that's what I say about breakthroughs. Like people believe they're rare, so it's true to them.
Yeah,
And I want to get people to start with belief. Believe that breakthroughs are everywhere. Because like once you believe that, you start to see it. And once you see it, you can to to start to have them in your life. The next thing, so first is believe it. That's like you have to believe it. I'm asking you to believe a presupposition, right? That they're everywhere. Number two is that breakthroughs don't happen alone. Too often, we think breakthroughs happen alone. And I'll tell you right now, I'm looking back on my life. Curtis, has there ever been a moment where I've had a breakthrough in isolation? Never. Absolutely not. Like, never. And I just wonder, Kevin, have you ever had moments where you've talked to a mentor, where you've had a conversation with someone that just gave you that new idea, right? Where you felt like you had a partner in crime that helped you motivate and propel the future you wanted forward, right? Like we look back at those moments and think, man, I wish we could have those relationships all the time, right?
yeah,
What I would say is you can. Like all you have to do is intentionally put them in your life. And whether that be a friend or spouse, whether it be an executive coach, whether that be a breakthrough group, is that you're structuring your life with key relationships that enable you to have breakthroughs all the time.
yeah, that's good. That's good. In your experience, have you observed that it's not people in general that help you have breakthroughs, but it's certain types of people?
Yes. And then the certain type of people is people that can do two things. That they have the self-awareness to make a discovery about their life. Not everyone has that. I want everyone to develop that. And then number two, that people have the courage to act.
Yeah,
That you want to be around those people, because if you have the self-awareness to make a discovery and the courage to act, you get breakthroughs all the time. So you really want to get yourself around people like that.
yep, that's really good. That's great. That's great. When you talk about normalizing breakthroughs, you were talking about the Jeep earlier. I was trying to remember the part of the brain that does that, and I believe it's called the reticular activating system, the RAS. And so what you're talking about is just flipping that switch and saying, you know what? Breakthroughs are happening everywhere all the time. And when you start looking for them, you actually start seeing them. Whereas if you have this concept or this belief that they rarely happen, breakthroughs are basically miracles that almost never happen, then you're just not going to see them because haven't created that awareness and you're not looking for them.
Absolutely.
That's basically what you're talking about, right?
Yes.
Okay, very good, very good. Anything else on normalizing breakthroughs before we move on to groups and coaching?
I just want to highlight one breakthrough shift
Okay,
that I haven't mentioned yet. And I've had a lot of people read this book, so much positive feedback. Uh, but I want to tell you what the most important part of the book is. And people often don't think that I'm going to say this, is they think, oh, it's the breakthrough circle. It's the breakthrough group, it's coaching. No, it's a chapter that's talked about disconnected to connected. And there's three identity myths that we buy into all the time. You are what you do, you are what people say, and you are what you have. And the problem is that when we buy into those identity myths, our life begins to feel like a roller coaster. That we're riding highs when we have stuff, when people are saying great things about us, when we're doing things. And then when people are saying bad things about us, we're failing, we lose something, we're in despair. And we need to move beyond those identity myths. And I talk about in that chapter, embracing your self-worth. And there's different ways one can do that, but you must embrace your self-worth. That's the foundation of having a breakthrough life. Because once you embrace your self-worth, you could work and live from your value, not for it. And that shift is everything. So I would encourage people, man, if you're buying into one of those three identity myths, you probably are, because I probably bought into one of them today already, right? It's not a one and done. It's something that we constantly have to reject and accept our self-worth. And that creates the foundation for a breakthrough life.
That's good. That's good. I like that. All right. So you're also offering free training materials for those interested in leading breakthrough groups. Can you tell us more about these groups, what participants can expect, and how they can get involved and just get more? Obviously, they can get your book on Amazon. Is that the primary place to get the book?
Yeah, Amazon's the primary place to get the book.
Okay.
Of course, I do executive coaching one-on-one. Happy to connect with people about that. But I'm going to tell you, I'm going to give you the dream. So you asked me, Curtis, what's your best possible imagined future? I'll answer the question. I want breakthrough groups to be everywhere. And a breakthrough group is a 5-month group coaching experience that meets every other week for 90 minutes. So it's 10 connections over 5 months with 5 people who commit to make discoveries and taking action together, period. Nothing else. And again, since you're a Seinfeld guy, I'm going to do a Seinfeld reference. Season 4, where George Costanza is in NBC pitching the pilot Jerry, and he says, "This is the show, and we're not going to change it." That's how passionate I am about breakthrough groups, because really it only is about working people around that circle. It's only about helping people make discoveries and take action and holding each other accountable to that. Because if you do, as a group, you get to experience breakthrough together. And the cool thing about having this in a group context is that once you start saying it out loud, whatever that imagined future is, whatever that act of courage is, you're saying it to people in a group that want that for you. And guess what? They have relationships, resources, opportunities to help you win. And that's what it's all, there's so much momentum and cool things that have in these breakthrough group experiences that I want everyone to be able to experience it. Because it's one thing to say breakthroughs are everywhere, is another thing to give people the vehicle to have that. And one of the vehicles is breakthrough groups. And I've created training materials, a leader's kit over the last 13 years. I'm going to do a live virtual training August 2nd and the first week of December, that anyone who commits to leading a breakthrough group this fall or this spring, like I'll do free, all the leaders training kits free, the live virtual trainings free. Like there's no barrier or entry point, because my dream is for breakthrough groups to be everywhere. So I want at the beginning to give that away to create that momentum down the hill.
That's awesome, Curtis. Well, hey, man, it's been incredibly insightful hearing about your approach to breakthroughs and personal growth. I've learned a lot. Like I said, I've got some practical application that I can implement in my coaching today. Where can our listeners find out more about your book, coaching services, and breakthrough groups?
Definitely. Everything is found at curtiscarnes.com. So it's literally myname.com. You can find all that. The book's on Amazon, and there's a lot. If you're interested in coaching or breakthrough groups, just email me, curtis@curtiscarnes.com. And if you're willing to launch a breakthrough group in August 23 or August 24 or January 25, I'll give you the leaders kit and invite a live virtual training for free.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, hey, Curtis, thank you, man. It's been great connecting with you. I appreciate the Seinfeld references. My wife and I are huge Seinfeld fans, and it is interesting, especially as I interact with some of the younger generation. I'm like, you don't know who Seinfeld is, do you? And I'm like, oh, you're missing out. You really need to. I can't remember if it's on Netflix now or whatever it says, but I was like, that's classic TV. The only other show that compares, in my personal opinion, is the Andy Griffith Show. Those are the two greatest shows ever. But Seinfeld, like we have a Seinfeld reference every single day of our lives. So I
No,
appreciate
if
it.
this book came out 2 decades ago, it would be littered with Seinfeld references,
Yeah.
but people don't, it doesn't translate anymore.
Yeah, it's a shame that's been lost. But hey, man, I really appreciate your time. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. Thank you for writing the book. I know it's a huge investment of time and effort and finances to write a book. People, it's like, oh, you wrote a book, you're making money off it. It's like most people don't make money off of a book. It's a huge investment. And so, folks, if you want a great book to help you with some very simple, practical action steps, this book right here is it. Curtis, I appreciate it, man. Take care.
You care.